Naija YouTube channel. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I really appreciate you guys a whole lot for subscribing to my YouTube channel. I appreciate you guys a whole lot. So if you are new to my channel, if this is actually the first time of you coming across Stylish Naija YouTube channel, I would appreciate if you will hit on the subscribe button. Yeah, so please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It actually takes nothing to just hit on that red button to subscribe, and then hit on the notification bell also to get an update whenever I upload a new video. So guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to actually cut and sew this trendy yoke design. So a lot of people have actually sent in this request for me to make this pattern, so I'm going to actually make it today. So it's really simple and easy. So I'm going to show you how to actually cut and sew it. So let's just get started. So this is the fabric that I'm going to be using. We're going to be treating only the yoke part. I want you to note I already have lots of corset videos on my channel, so I'm going to drop the link in case you don't know how to cut a corset, because you see the bodice is actually a corset. So I'll drop the links for you to watch. So we're dealing with the yoke part. I want you to take note. So guys, I'm going to be making use of my basic bodice pattern. So that's what we're going to use to cut out the yoke for this dress. So it is really simple. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to fold my pattern paper like this, and then I'm going to mark out a portion from the top part. So I'm just going to cut out from this part like this. I'll cut it out. I have not measured, I'm just cutting. So once I'm done, we'll measure out what we want. That's how much length we want the yoke to be. Okay guys, so now let's get straight to our measurement. So normally you are going to measure where you actually want your yoke to get to. So most times it's usually between 8 and 9 inches. So it depends on how deep you actually want it to be. So for this, I'm going to be making use of 9 inches for the yoke. So this is our 9 inches mark. I'm going to rule it like this. So this is going to be the length of the yoke. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to add about half an inch or 1 inch, half an inch for stitching allowance. So if you are going to add half an inch on the down part, also add half an inch to the top part. That will make 1 inch. So I'm just going to mark it like this now. And then I'll rule it and then cut out the remaining part. Okay. So I'm just trying to double check like my chest line, because 8 inches most times is like standard for chest line. That's the depth like this. So let's continue. So the first thing we're going to do now, you're going to create out the neckline. So for the neckline, I'm going to use 3.5 inches from this point like this. So while working on just the front yoke, the back, if you look at the dress, the back actually does not have a yoke. So the back, you can decide to just do it straight. It does not have a yoke. So we're going to mark out 3.5 inches width. So this is my 3.5 inches. So from this point, I'm going to come to this center part. From this center part, you are going to measure. You can decide to do half an inch. You can decide to do 1 inch. The essence of doing it is because if you do not, if you cut it out straight from this point, that's this end, you will see that yoke was actually sewn and torn. You will not be able to sew that slim part to turn it. So you need some amount of fabric so you'll be able to sew and turn. So for that part, I'm going to use about half of an inch. So I'll be able to sew and turn. So I'm going to mark my half an inch there. And then the next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to come to this point. So this is my half inch. I've marked it here. The next thing now, I'm going to connect this line to this line to create out like a V neckline like this. Okay. So I've marked it out. So the next thing now, we're going to create that pattern here. So in creating out that pattern, you are going to determine how deep you want that arc that is in the middle, you actually want it to be. So for this, I'm going to use about I could decide to use about 4.5 inches or 4 inches. So I think let me do 4 inches. So this is the 4 inches point. This is just like a guide. So this mark, I'm just putting this mark just to guide me on how high when I create like my pyramid on the side. So the next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to come to this point like this. I'm going to mark another half of an inch. The essence of marking this is for me to, when I sew and turn, I'll still have enough point to turn. So I'll mark half an inch here. So this is the neckline. This is just like basically the neckline and the V neckline. So I don't want you to get confused. This is the V neckline. We're going to cut it out. So now we're now creating the pattern on the yoke. So I've marked half an inch for that in creating out the pattern. So I'm going to come to this point and then I'm going to mark the center of this point like this. Just put your tape and then mark the center. So the next thing I'm going to do from this point like this, I'm just going to create like a curve. The essence of marking this center is just to give me like a guide, you understand? So from this point like this, once I get to this point, I'm just going to give it a small slight curve, and then I'm going to start coming down. So in coming down from this point like this, I'm going to determine how wide I want the side towards my armhole, how wide I actually want that side to be. So for this part, I'm going to use about 1.5 inches because I don't want the armpit side to be too slim. So I'm just going to mark it like this. And then when I get to this down part also, I'm still going to measure my 1.5 inches. So let it guide me. So from this point like this now, I'm just going to do this. And then I'll blend it into the armhole part. So I'm going to use my curve now. So it depends on the pattern that you want. So I'll use my curve on this side. So I'll curve this part, and then this part, I'm just going to use my free hand like this to create it up to this point like this. So you see, we are literally done. So the first thing, I'm going to cut out this side now for you to see. So I'll cut out the neckline. This is the neckline. Okay, so we've cut out the neckline. The next thing we're going to cut now, we're going to cut out this arc from this center like this. So this part, note, this part is allowance. That's this part is allowance. Is this line? This is where our yoke got to. So this is just like an allowance. So after stitching, you will be able to stitch it on your, so you'll be able to sew it on the yoke, and then it will not get truncated. That's just the essence. So I'm just going to take this point like this, and then I'll cut. Okay, so at the end, so you see what we have. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to place on my fabric, and then I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut it double. So I'm going to cut out 4 pieces of this. So I'll use my fabric. This is from my leftover fabric. I'm just going to fold it and then I'll cut it out. Okay, so I folded my fabric into 4. I'm going to cut it out now. So I want you to note, for the length, I'm not going to add any allowance to the length again. The only part where I'm going to add like 1/4 inch of allowance is the side. So I'll be able to stitch properly. But the length I've already added. So I'm going to cut out now. Another simple way for you to do this is you can decide to cut out 2. You can decide to cut out 2, and then the other 2, don't cut it on the pattern. You are just going to place the pattern that you have here on it. So with that, it will be easy for you to sew. So I'm just going to cut out 2 and then take what I cut out, place here, and then stitch it round. So I'll cut now. You see what? I just pulled it, so I'll be able to get the shape. So the allowance is there. So make sure You see what I have? Make sure you have enough allowance on the side, or else if not, when you stitch, it's going to be too slim. So here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take this now, and then I'll place here. It will be easier. So you place it, this is the right side, and then this is the right side. So you make sure you take right side facing right side like this, and then we're going to stitch. You leave and the shoulder part, you stitch this part around, stitch this part around, and then stitch this part around like this. So I'll go and do that now, and then come back and show you. I'll do the same to this. Okay, so you can see what I have. I finished stitching it. So because the fabric is the same, so the thing is just camouflaging. So I'm going to trim it along all of the edges now, and then notch around it. So I'm going to turn it out now, put my notches and then turn it out, iron, and then come and show you how to fix this to any of your tube pattern. Okay guys, so you could see, so I finished stitching it. So here is what we have. So after stitching the yoke like this, all you are going to do, you take your pattern, that's your, if you are using a corset, if you are doing a regular bustier, you could use it for any kind of pattern of your choice. You're just going to take this like this, and then you are going to place them at half of an inch. You know, we actually used 1 inch allowance, so you use half on this point, and then the other half is going to be for the top. So this is going to sit like this, and then on this part like this also. So you make sure, so you see this is the center part. So in fixing, you're just going to take it like this, you place it like this at half inch. So I'm going to go and stitch like this and stitch, and then this part also, you see the armhole part, I'll stitch and then I'll stitch. So for this, if you are using a lining, all you are going to do, your lining that you have already finished stitching, you are going to take this part like this, stitch it, and then you take your lining like this and then place like this, and then you sew on the top part like this. So once you sew like this, you turn. So I'll just go and stitch this. I'm not putting lining for the sake of this tutorial. I'm not adding a lining to this. So I'll just go and stitch this and then show you how to connect it with the back piece. Okay guys, so you see I finished stitching it just the way I told you. So you see how it is looking so well and beautiful. So the next thing, I'm going to show you how to place this on the back pattern. So this is our regular back pattern. So like I told you, the back does not have a yoke, but if you want to add a yoke to the back, you can decide to do that. So the back does not have a yoke. So this is my zipper allowance, this is my basic bodies. So you're just going to take the front like this. So I just want to show you how it will look like. So you see, you place it like this. So the shoulder, you stitch the shoulders together. So because the front is a tube pattern, so you see the armhole point, the shoulder line, so you join on the shoulder line and then join on the shoulder line, and then the back part is just, that's the back armhole is just like that, and then here is the front armhole. So you remember we used about half an inch. That's what we are going to use to stitch on this part. So you see what we have at the end of the day. So guys, thank you so much. I've now come to the end of this illustration. So if you find this video helpful, I would appreciate if you hit on the like button. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. I'll see you in my next video. God bless you.